Oh, before I get into the interview, I might as well tell you now that this is going to be really free form. I like to just follow the flow of your story.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
I think that everybody has a story, and people, you exploded on the YouTube scene, and people see your channel, and they don't get to know a lot about who you are, as a human being and where you come from.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the goal of this video, is to turn you into a person. And I think that everybody has a story, so that's the goal.
Oh yeah, sure. Sounds great.
So let's go ahead and get into it.
Mhm.
You are Johnny of the Potential History YouTube channel.
Yep.
You make meme-tastic videos on real historical stuff, and you cover the things that the kids are talking about these days with the video games and the anime. I was introduced to your channel by some people in the War Thunder community saying, "Hey, what do you think about Potential History?" And my first reaction was, well, I wasn't, I was just listening in on this conversation. I
Uh-huh.
was thinking, well, I'm not into these alternate history things. I like real history. Because, of course, with the name of your channel, and I'm sure you've heard this before, just the initial reaction is, oh, well, that's just another, what could have happened, with really, really just pure speculation. They're all just fantasy. And then we get to your channel, and it's actually like good history, but entertaining and for the kids.
Yeah.
Even. Have I left something out, or is that a pretty good summary of what you're doing on the YouTubes right now?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, the name thing, I did kind of pick the worst name for somebody who's so vocal about not liking alternative history and stuff. The reason that it was picked was when I was younger, like in high school, I was always wanting to start bands and I was writing songs and stuff, but I could never find a group of people to actually play the songs with me and record the music. I played drums starting out, and that was pretty much the only thing I was good at. But the stuff I was writing was, simple enough for me to play. And so I decided, like, okay, if I can't find anybody, I'm just going to record this myself. And so I started recording it under the name Potential Failure, and I was uploading them to Bandcamp. And I think, I don't know if any of them are there anymore and stuff, but they're very bad high school, do-it-yourself recordings. I called it Potential Failure because I was like, this could sound terrible, and it ended up being the name of my second channel. But yeah, and so once I did that, I kind of told myself when I was probably like 20, 21, I was like, anything that I do is going to be like potential whatever, And so when I started the YouTube channel, I just did Potential History because I thought it sounded cool. And now it's causing much confusion between people. And yeah, I probably should have gone with something else, but I still think it sounds kind of neat. It's kind of catchy. So I still like it for that reason.
I think that initial breaking of expectation is actually a good thing for your channel, because it makes you really memorable. Besides the nature of the stuff that you make, which I would say is something that stands out on YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
So let's get into your real life history.
Yeah.
The most interesting thing about history, of course, being the stories of the people involved, in my humble opinion. So, you were born, and then stuff happened. Tell us a little bit about some of your early memories.
I'm currently 23, which surprises a lot of people because my voice makes me sound younger. So I was born in 1995, and my parents are both teachers. Before I was born, my mom was a math teacher. My dad was a history teacher, now an economics teacher. And he and one of his teaching friends, our two families would always go to like Civil War battlefields and stuff as a kid. And the first thing that got me interested in history was, I've been told this because I don't remember it, but I was like 5 or 6, and it was, I guess that would have been like probably 10 years since the movie Gettysburg came out. But for whatever reason, my dad was watching the movie Gettysburg in our living room, and I came out and watched like the last hour of it. And apparently I just came out, sat down, and was just like mesmerized with the whole movie. And the rest of my childhood from that day forward was like everything Civil War. We were going to every reenactment that we could. I was playing Civil War outside with my friends constantly and stuff like that. And ever since then, it was an interest that was either at the forefront or close behind, depending on how into music or anything I was getting older. And so, yeah, the earliest childhood memories would be just playing Civil War with my friends and everything. The house I grew up in was right next to an old cemetery that was so old all the stones were gone, but it was recognized by the city of Indianapolis as a historic cemetery. So it was just this big lot right next to the house that we would always play in.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend lived like catty corner behind us, backing up to this field. He and I would always be in that field playing. There was a small grove of trees that we kind of dug out as like a Civil War trench, and we always called it the trench.
Awesome.
And so we always, yeah, that was the place we always messed around in for probably like 10 years. Yeah, probably a little less than that, but yeah. There was actually one stone left there that kind of verified it was at one point a cemetery that was right behind there. That was what I did every single Saturday, every single day I could. So I was a kid, go out there and play Civil War, and then when I couldn't in the winters, we would play like games and stuff inside, like the Medal of Honor games and stuff like that. And that was my first interest in World War II when I was a little bit older. And so for a few years there, it was we'd play Civil War in the summer, and then in the winter it was World War II. Eventually culminating into this, I guess.
That is really cool. I love how, from a parent's perspective,
Yeah.
you watch your kids just like something clicks in their brain, and they're like, "This is the coolest thing ever," and they just want like 100% that, and it's good if it's something useful like history, and also both your parents being teachers. They probably had a pretty good handle on steering your interest into something productive, which is like one of the best qualities of a teacher. I've noticed is they take what you're already interested in, and they lead you into a way of making that useful and effective for making you a powerful adult, and that's clearly worked out for you. I might not be a little hasty in saying this, but I think your parents did a good job.
Oh yeah, definitely. My dad and his friend, the dad of the family that we were always going places with, whenever they found a book or something, depending on my age, how difficult it was to read or something, they'd always throw it my way to be like, "Hey, you'd be interested in this. It's got Civil War facts and stuff like that in it." They were really good at, not just seeing that I had an interest in it, but being like, "Here's how it was, learn about this," and then go into the battlefields and stuff like that, trying to see as much of it as I could and everything. I definitely wouldn't have had that interest turn into what it did if it wasn't for them responding to it and really nurturing it.
Yeah. Here's a video idea for you. The ABCs of the Civil War. A children's book version
Oh, yeah.
of Civil War history. B is for bayonet.
Yeah.
So that I feel, hey, that could be some serious untapped potential, but you'll have to make that video before I do.
Yeah, definitely. I actually do have a Civil War video. It should be 2 or a week from this coming Friday, so I'm not sure when this will be up. So that'll either be out or about to be out before this, but it'll be my first Civil War video. I haven't really gotten into other time periods yet, just because I started out with World War II, and that seemed to be what stuck. I mean, World War II is the greatest hits of history. Everybody does World War II.
Oh yeah.
I want to branch out from that, but I don't want to just abandon it, because I mean I enjoy it, and I know a lot of people enjoy it for that, and a lot of the channel is tank stuff and everything. But I will be venturing out. I just did that Russo-Japanese War video, so I'm wanting to do different time periods. That'll be one of the other first ones that I go into.
I enjoyed seeing that other stuff. You're not the only person who is encountering a glut of information and topics on World War II, and then you get hungry for the other stuff because every war matters. So that was you growing up, playing in the woods, and reenacting your Civil War with your friends. And then you got into music. Tell me a little more about the things you were into in high school. Did you have a girlfriend?
I did. I had a girlfriend from when I was a senior in high school or a sophomore in high school, from when
I actually quit going to college as a sophomore in college because I went to college for 2 years for history. And that's one of the things I get asked a lot if I went to school for it at all. I went for 2 years, long enough to learn really the way you're supposed to research and size up sources and things like that. And I was just getting into what my major would be for a history degree. But I found out really quickly because I wanted to work in a museum and do things like that. And I found out really quickly it's a very niche area to work in. Basically, to work in a museum, you have to have, a master's or a doctorate. And even then, it takes a few years. You have to kind of build up your historical street cred with writing different things and stuff like that. And I was young and impatient, and so I didn't want to do that. And basically, the way that you get there in the meantime is you teach either in college or most likely college or high school courses. And I just didn't see it as being financially viable for going to school that many years to wait for the payoff that long. And so I quit going after a while to just start working. But before that, in high school, I was really into music. I was in a number of bands and stuff. Still in a band nowadays with with a few of those people that I was in those bands with in high school, called Normandy, Normundy. And so still doing that. But in high school I was your basic guy who was into music too much. And then once I was in college, kind of got back into the whole history thing with the classes I was taking.
So, I don't know if you mentioned this. Apologies if you did. I have a little bit of a distraction going on in the background.
Oh no, you're
that's
good.
my that's my 2-year-old, and she's freaking adorable.
Aww.
But yeah, hopefully you won't hear from the newborn. We just had our baby girl born on last Sunday.
Oh, congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you. I love being a dad. Kind of lost my train. Oh, right. So, I'm a bit distracted, but I was going to ask you what instruments you've played, and did one of those stand out to you? Are you a drum guy? Are you a guitar guy?
Yeah, I started playing drums when I was in middle school. I played trumpet in middle school band from when I was in like the 5th grade to the 8th grade. I actually picked that instrument because it was like the Civil War bugle. And 4th grade me, when you pick your instruments, I was all into Civil War, and I was like, that was the closest thing. So that's what I wanted to learn how to play. But then when I got older, I was looking at all the percussionists behind me, and I was like, oh, that's even cooler. And eventually my parents got me a drum set, and I learned how to play that. I kind of just taught myself, which sounds cool to begin with, but you actually teach yourself wrong a lot, and then you have to go back and relearn how to do stuff correctly. It's kind of a cool thing to say later, but like, I'd probably be twice as good as I am now if I'd actually learned correctly the first time. I would cobble together what I could out of guitar playing for recording those songs I mentioned, but I never took lessons or anything for that. I have really small hands, and so I'm just not great for stringed instruments. I can never get a power chord down on guitar. I'd always have to tune it down and play bar chords. But right now in the band that I'm in now, I'm playing bass because I had enough knowledge to learn their songs, and I'm getting a bit better, but I'm still not fantastic. I know how to play Normandy songs, not really anything else. But I mostly joined just to hang out with those guys again and play music with them because they're just some of my best friends that I've known since forever. So that's the main reason I've been doing that, just for fun and just for an outlet of something else to do,
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I played an instrument myself, and I definitely loved every minute of it.
Oh yeah, it's just so fun. Yeah, it's just so fun to see everything like come together when you have ideas and everything. You have all the parts in your head, and then whether you're recording them and programming them, and you hear them all together, or everyone's playing together and you finally hear it, like that's one of the most satisfying feelings ever. Just to hear what was in your head come into something that's actually tangible.
Yeah, and there's almost unlimited potential for growth in your skill and ability.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could never be the best. There's always someone who's better. It's always driving you to get better.
So that is really interesting. I definitely feel like I have a better feel for who you are now. You have small hands.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed.
Well, you always see the guitar and bass players that are like really famous and stuff, and if you ever look at their hands, they have these long spidery hands.
Oh yeah.
Mine are just like average and everything. So even when I was learning the songs for this band, there was some stuff that I was just stretching my hand like beyond where it could go to try to get it before I realized what a better technique was and stuff.
You mentioned that you have a job. Tell me a little bit, if you want to,
Sure.
about jobs that you've had and then leading up into the job you have now.
First few jobs were just your basic, like I worked at a Jimmy John's for a while doing delivery
Awesome.
driving, just stuff like that. Like I love that job just because you're just out driving by yourself, you listen to radio and stuff like that. And then the longest thing that I worked at before doing this was it was a tractor parts store. It was one of the bigger chains, but I'll just leave it at that.
How very Midwest of you.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, people hear I'm from Indiana,
then they figure out I work there, and they're like, "What, did you grow up in a cornfield too?" Like,
like it's such a stereotype. Yeah, I worked there for a while, and that job was okay. It would have been terrible if I didn't have such a great boss and everything. Like, it is one of those things where the people you worked with really made the difference. But now I'm just working on YouTube full time. I've been able to do that thanks to the generosity of many patrons and just how quickly the channel's blown up and everything.
Awesome. Well, that is really cool. I'm glad that you're able to do that, especially since I'm 31, but I still think of like everyone younger than me as like in this beautiful privileged space. But maybe that's because I'm a dad and free time is like one of those things you squeeze in between your responsibilities.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and this isn't complaining because it's the best thing I've ever done. It's a great job. It's amazing to be able to work on just making videos 24/7. But it is a whole lot more of a job than I figured it might be. Starting out just with deadlines and everything like that. And it was also just a really weird transition for me because for a solid 6 months of doing this was my hobby, making videos and stuff, and then suddenly it was my job. And I had trouble not feeling guilty that, like, for the longest time I did feel guilty that I wasn't doing anything like productive, because in my head this was, this whole thing was just for fun. And then I would go like make a video and finish a video and upload it. And I'd tell my current girlfriend, I'd be like, "Man, I don't feel like I did anything today. I just played around today." And she was like, "What are you talking about? You just made a whole video." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but it's just been a hobby for so long that it doesn't feel like productive yet." You know what I mean? Because it was just like, "Oh, this is what I get to do for fun." It's a weird thing, and it's not something I'm complaining about, which would be dumb. But it was just a weird headspace to get wrapped around in the oh, this is what your job is now. And it's not. This isn't just like for fun. This is what you're doing, and I've definitely seen a difference in the videos getting better and stuff like that ever since I started doing it full time. I've been able to make stuff that's way beyond what I thought I could, and what I thought I'd be able to learn, and the depth of research I thought I'd be able to do. And that's been really cool to see happen. I did a New Year's update video for all my patrons, and I told them, I was like, I couldn't have gotten this far without you guys doing it full time. Like, I'm really proud of that 4th Meme Tanks video and that Germany Can't Win World War II Part 2 video, just because I never thought I'd be able to make something that was such a cool, solid theme, and that built up to such a good point and everything like that. All the videos when I was doing this as a hobby, some of them are kind of, at least in my opinion, bad, just because I was doing it kind of on the fly of what I could think of at the time, and I couldn't really put the time into having them be so themed and having them. It's been really nice to be able to do that and just see the quality of everything just go up.
Yeah, well, I feel that it shows, and those videos that you mentioned, Meme Tanks 4 and Germany Couldn't Have Won World War II especially, was one of those ones that stood out to me. I really enjoyed that one.
Oh, thank you.
So the effort you're putting into your videos shows, and you're getting a response from it. Mm-hmm. It's always nice that you sort of have to, at the start, temper your expectations, because the average viewer has no idea. I'm talking the average person has no idea how much effort it takes to make a decent video.
Yeah.
And especially one where you have to put in research and weigh things and come up with a script and then do all the editing and everything. And then if you expect to get, congratulations from everybody because you've put in that hard work, and then you put it out there and people are, it's just one of thousands upon thousands of videos people have watched, and they go, okay, that was a thing.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
And you're just like, but wait, it meant so much to me.
No, and that's why I'm so happy for the outpouring of support and how quickly the channel's gained momentum. I kind of don't understand it, but I'm eternally grateful for how many people have really kind of gotten involved and subscribed and everything like that. I had the same plan as everybody else starting out. I was like, I'm going to start out just out of the gate, be really high quality and everything like that. And I tried my best to do that when I started, but they aren't what I would call high quality now. So the fact that so many people, if I ever have somebody tell me like, oh, I've been with you since 10,000 subscribers or something, I'm always like, which video did you see first? And I'm like, oh, I hope it was a good one.
Yeah, I have watched everything you have on your channel now, partly for research purposes, of course, but also because I sit at my computer a lot, and frankly, you're a listenable person. So,
oh, thank you. That was one of the first surprising things I got. People were like, "You have a really good voice for voiceovers." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I didn't think so at all. The first few videos, the audio was the hardest thing to edit ever, because you know how you just hate your voice, hearing your own voice to begin with, and then on top of that, I was like, I'm just kind of doing the voiceovers because I gotta do them. I didn't think I was any good at it at all. So editing those first few voiceovers was painful just because I thought it was terrible. And then the first few times people were like, oh, you have a really good voice for this voiceover stuff. I was like, are you serious? I couldn't believe it.
Man, you don't sound like you're 9 at all. That's awesome. You sound like you're at least 12.
Yeah, I do still have people be surprised how old I am. They think I'm younger than I am for my voice. But other than that, people seem to really like it.
Hey, if they think that off the bat that you are a male, you have an advantage over me for most of my life. So, yeah, it's good that you mention hating the sound of your own voice, because definitely a lot of people feel that way. And then you build a lot of confidence as you put stuff out there, and there are people who don't hate it. And that's great encouragement for people that are getting started off, which is just the best thing to do as a YouTuber, I think, is to encourage people to make content of their own. You've had some quality friendships that you've hinted at. Let's see if you could tell us a story about something that you and your friends did that stands out to you.
I guess if I don't name the bar, they won't get in trouble. But there was one time when, in one of my old bands that I played in called Running for Last, we were just playing anywhere we could in Indianapolis, and there was one time where we were playing at this bar, and bar shows are notoriously just bad on the weeknights, and this was a weeknight one, and just no one was really there. There were a few people there, but we were the last to play, and it was at 10 o'clock or something, and we were all underage. So the way that works is basically, depending on the rules of the bar, you can either be inside the bar, just not where the drinks are being served if you're underage, or you just can't be inside. And so we were imagining that would happen at that point, but I don't remember what specifically led to this, but for some reason the door guy never checked our IDs and never gave us an X on our hands, and everybody just assumed we were over 21, which all of us looked like children. I don't know how this happened, but it was like $1 solo cup beer night. And so me and my friend Nathan, who now lives in Florida, who was our bass player when I was the drummer, me and him just kept running up to the bar, seeing how many drinks we could buy before the whole thing just went south. And it was a good 3 or 4 hours. Like, I think it was right after we played that the co-owner, because the owner wasn't there, and that's probably why this happened, but the co-owner came to us and he was like, "Oh, guys," and I was like, "Oh crap, we're in trouble." But he was like, he apologized to us. He was like, "Guys, I am so sorry," and I was like, "What?" And he said, "We can't be serving you drinks anymore." He was like, "I didn't know you guys were underage. Like, don't tell anybody, we get in huge trouble. I'm sorry about this." And I was like, "Why are you sorry about this? I'm taking advantage of, like, this situation. Like, you should just be mad at me." But, that was one that stood out as one that was just kind of, like, out there. It was something that, when we were leaving, I was telling, one of my other friends, Josh, I was like, "No one's going to believe us that this happened." And he was like, "Yeah, I know." But, it was just fun stuff like that, of just, being out and just getting into whatever we could. The highlight of that whole time with those guys was my senior year of high school, because it was when we first started doing music together. And like clockwork, every weekend it would be between the 3 of us that drove, because 3 of us were seniors, the other 2 were sophomores. Between the 3 of us that drove, they would all immediately go to my parents' house where I lived. And we would write and record songs till like 8 o'clock at night. Then after that, we lived on the southern edge of Indianapolis. So, 5 minutes in one direction, you'd be where everything was, like the malls and stuff like that. And then like 10 minutes, you'd be downtown. But 5 minutes in the other direction, and you were in the middle of nowhere. So we would get in our friend's car. He had this really fast, like, I think it was a Supra or something like that, car. And we just go out to the middle of nowhere where speed limits weren't really enforced. And we just, drive around in that thing till really, really late. And then we go back to one of our houses, usually my friend Joel's house. And we would, that was when Black Ops 2 was out, and it was really big. And we just play that late into the night. And then that would just happen like every weekend, like week after week. And so that was just one of the most fun times of my life, just knowing that every weekend that's how it was going to go, and you were just going to have that kind of fun with your friends. And it was something that never really got old. Like, you'd think eventually the same thing after a while would, but it was just everyone got along so well, and everybody liked each other so well that that whole time was just great.
I was just sort of envying you for your nice circle of friends.
Yeah, well, it kind of sucked for a while though, because then once everybody started going to college and like people started getting married and everything, it's the cliche thing of like the whole group kind of just drifts apart. And so recently with me playing music with them again, that's kind of been a change. But for a while there, I would kind of think about it and get nostalgic, and then kind of get sad and be like, "Oh, that was, that's not going to happen again."
You definitely remind me a lot of my friend Jared. So it's been charming talking with you and getting to know you better as a real person. You've talked about your group of friends. Mm-hmm. Would you consider yourself a people person?
No. And that's the thing. I've always, my whole life, been really quiet and really reserved. And I've been very aware of that. So, one of the weird things about the channel being so successful and stuff is, suddenly having to learn how to be really personable and learn how to talk to strangers a whole lot better, because I was terrible at it. This time last year, if you asked me if I could be doing, even stuff like this, like just, getting on a call with somebody and talking this casually, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. It's definitely been a skill that I've had to learn on the fly. The first few really, really long-time patrons that I've had will tell you that every weekend I try to do either like we all watch a movie together or something like that, and it's kind of branched out into like playing different games together on different nights of the week and stuff. And those first few, man, I was terrible. I didn't know what to say whatsoever. was just really quiet, and, you know, people wanted to interact with me and everything, and I just spent my whole life being so quiet and so not the person to lead the discussion that it was kind of a skill that I had to learn fairly quickly. Yeah, I've always been really introverted. I've always preferred to be at home or just be with people that I know, and I've always been horrible at meeting people and everything. So I know I come off pretty personable in videos and online and stuff like that, but that's definitely a skill that I've learned over the past while of doing this.
Would you say that you're the kind of person that when you're with your friends, you're just totally alive, and when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, it's much easier to speak about, and then it's a lot harder to just be in that open-ended social situation?
Oh yeah, definitely. When I was, my high school girlfriend went to college at Ball State, and so I would go see her on weekends a lot. And whenever we were going out to different things or different parties and stuff, I would always be terrible at just being sociable and stuff like that. I'm sure quite a few people thought that I was, that I was just, I thought badly of people or something like that. I don't know. But it was just because I was so terrible at striking up conversations and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm much better with people that I know and with talking about stuff that I know about. But it's not necessarily because I always want things to go that way. I like a lot just in conversations, just sitting back and listening and, hearing about stuff from other people. But yeah, it's been different this past year, but it's been really good to get better at that and everything. I did, this is kind of funny. I did, kind of do sort of a fan meetup that was really small at, it was, the World War II days at the Indiana Military Museum in Vincennes. And I mentioned that I was going to be there to people on Twitter. And I don't really know how I thought that would go because, I just never met, like, fans before. And just the idea of meeting fans was so weird to me, just the whole statement when talking about you is just strange, and it still is. But I had a few people come up to me, and I feel so bad because I didn't really know what to do. They were just like, "Hey, Johnny." And I was like, "Oh, hey." And then I just kind of froze. And I was like, and the funny part is, like, I probably could have said just about anything, and they would have thought it was great. They just wanted to talk to me and stuff. But I just didn't know what to say. So I awkwardly, churned through a little bit of, a few questions back and forth. And then I was kind of like, all right, I gotta go. After it had been silent enough. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was on the car on the way back. And I was like, I was so bad. Like, those people were expecting, something. And whatever they were expecting, I did not give it to them. I was just so, just shocked. Just I didn't know what to say. And so I'm hoping to be at a few events this summer, and that's one thing I need to work on, just figuring out what to do there, because I'm just so bad at that aspect still, just the in person, like someone recognizing me, because I just don't know what to do. So I got to figure that out definitely.
Well, don't beat yourself up about it. That's something that's common to almost everybody. Yeah. If I have any advice, it's that the more you ask someone about their self and get interested in who they are, treat them like they're the celebrity, that would just completely make their day. And then if you're always going to remember the things that you do wrong, but the best thing you can do is just show value to somebody else. And I guarantee you that if you stumble over yourself and drool out of the corner of your mouth for 5 straight minutes, and then you just ask someone how their day was, and they came there to see you, and they're just like, he asked about me, he was so cool. That's what they're going to remember. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what people, once I got back home, were telling me. And it was stuff where they were like, you should just ask them what their favorite tank was. And I was like, of course. I know it's not hard. But, I just gotta, in the moment, gotta, think about, stuff like that. But I'm sure I'll get it. It's just, that first one was rough.
Yeah, and it's okay to have, a template to work off of. it's all right for you to look in the mirror and just have 5 questions memorized that you ask every single person.
Yeah.
They won't care. They won't know. And when you're panicking, the thing that you do is what you've trained to do.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson across everything. That's a martial arts trick as well. But all music's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working off of a piece of music you've never touched before, you're completely lost. You'll do what you've practiced doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that brings me as a complete and totally natural segue into something that I sort of got a hint of from your bar story, is that you seem to have, and also with your fan meetup talking about that, you seem to hold yourself accountable, which shouldn't seem all that extraordinary, but it sort of is. And I'm wondering, where does that come from for you? Did someone teach you to hold yourself to a higher standard, or is there someone you hold up as an example of how to be a good man?
Probably just my parents, from how they raised me. They were a very traditional Midwestern Christian family, and although a lot of the values they hold are different than me, that was definitely just part of how they were when I was growing up. So I would definitely point to them for that, and it's just been something that I haven't been able to shake, I guess, as far as, even though that sounds weird, because just like with that bar scenario, it's like, oh man, I should have been like trying to think of a way to get out of it, but instead I was like, oh, I'm sorry, like if it had been something where it was like, you kids can't do that, you're in trouble, instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry, that I probably should have been like, crap, I gotta get out of here. But so I don't know if it's the best survival skill to have, but yeah, definitely they instilled that in me when I was a kid.
Well, as a father myself and as a youth pastor, which is really, now that I'm actually a father, it's just sort of an excuse to love somebody as much as I love the kids in my class.
Uh-huh.
But I really, it really warms my heart to see that your parents instilled that in you, because that's actually biblical, as you may know.
Oh yeah.
There's
I got
there's
all
a
that
passage
when I was a
in,
kid.
I think it's a proverb that says, "Train a child up in the way he should go, and even when he's an old man, he won't depart from it." So you're stuck. You're stuck holding yourself accountable.
It's been really awesome to collaborate with so many people and be part of that big group project, the Operation Odysseus thing. Was really cool. And I'd say, everybody in the YouTube History Channel sphere just wants to see everybody succeed. And I think a lot of that's because we're not really taken seriously as a whole by the rest of YouTube, in that, we just kind of have our own little corner, and nobody who's not into us bothers us. So anytime someone kind of has some mainstream success breakthrough, it's kind of some legitimacy to everybody. But also just, just the type of people that are in that, everybody wants to see everybody else do well. And so that's been really nice. But yeah, a lot of the other corners of YouTube, like the commentary area, all the commentary channels, they're constantly going after one another. And just lots of other kind of communities in there. They seem to be at each other's throats a lot. And like, I don't think you'll ever see one History Channel do like an exposed video on another or anything like that. It's a lot more wholesome in our end.
Yeah, I've definitely, again, I love to look into the people involved, right? And I gotta say, there's a lot of big personalities and people that have gotten success, and they've been pretty, well, just not the way I would raise my kids, let's put it that way. And it's great to see someone who has a genuine desire just to make fun stuff.
Yeah.
Get success, and you're living proof that it's possible. And not only is it possible, you don't have to do anything shady. You don't have to You don't have to use, these tricks for growing your channel fast because it's such a competitive network.
Yeah.
It's really about making interesting and quality stuff and getting really lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's just been fun to do that. I don't think I would have lasted 5 minutes if I'd picked any other sort of channel to be. I am kind of envious of those commentary channels though, because like I think I said it at the end of the William Porter video, but I was like, it was the only one that I've sat in front of the camera and talked, and I said something along the lines of like, I'm kind of jealous of those commentary channels because this video was really easy. Like, all I had to do was sit in front of the camera and talk, and then I was like, if you took out the research that I had to do to talk about this thing specifically, like, and I'm just sitting here saying my opinions, like, this would be easy. And so I'm kind of jealous of them for that, because their videos are just, all opinion and everything, and that'd just be a whole lot easier to make instead of all the research and stuff that comes into here. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
We got plenty of material. Don't worry about it.
Okay, sure.
Sunday is definitely my day off, which brings me into my final question. How do I put this? Both of your parents, you say, were fairly traditional Midwestern parents, Christians. I'm assuming that they were. Would people who aren't familiar with being raised Christian, they're presented with a lot of sort of two things. There's Catholics and crazy people. So I just identify myself. I'm like, hey, I'm a crazy person.
Yeah.
Here's what I believe. And so it's just way easier than explaining that, the in my own words, the truth about who God is highly offensive to the average person because they want to live their own life. And I'm going to say some things that sound crazy because I know him. But for you, your parents were Christians. Did you get the impression that they were really genuine? And is that something, are you a religious person today? Are you a spiritual person today? What's your take on that?
I am not. And it's a combination of two things. I do think my parents are very genuine, and I think they come to their conclusions about things very honestly. For me, church and everything growing up was very much school part 2. And I don't put that on them or really anybody that was teaching me or anything. It's just, kind of the way that it's done. And kind of the way that I got that it was done a lot of places from friends that went to different churches when I was a kid, was that, you go to school and you learn your historical and mathematical and, grammatical facts, and then you go to church and you learn your biblical facts, and
Sunday school after all, right?
And so after so many years of knowing all the right answers, but not really having anything click, but being very open to having anything click, I very quickly just kind of lost interest for that reasoning. And then also just in learning so much about history and things like that, and just kind of the trends in history that the average person has absolutely no control of, and things like that, and realizing kind of how small people are in the grand scheme of things, just kind of made me a little apathetic to that. It also made me really apathetic to politics too, which is dumb, and everybody would say like, oh, it's only your apathy that's making things not change and stuff like that. But, looking back on previous political things in history and stuff like that, and how it's kind of just, not even just in America, but in the whole world, this big kind of back and forth pull between different sides and everything like that, and that you're kind of born at a certain time where you're going to see certain trends and things like that. I kind of view politics and like the last election and stuff like that very much as a how are the history books going to write about this? This is a really interesting time to live in, but I'm not going to waste a lot of my energy or emotional energy in getting too involved in it, because it's a lot bigger than me, and to get really charged about something like that I have barely any effect over, and that my opinion isn't really going to change anything on,
it just isn't worth the effort, emotional effort to me to really get into it. Rather than I much prefer to just sit back and watch. I have one of my patrons ask me during the midterm election, like, what do you think about how that turned out? And I was like, I think it's interesting. Then he kind of asked me what my views were, and I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of one of those soulless, like, centrist people that doesn't care. Not necessarily because I don't keep up with things, but because I don't see any merit in getting too involved in it, because things are going to go, a certain way out of reaction from the last thing. And I think it's interesting to watch. But I'm not going to burn bridges or, get overly emotional into something that is kind of how it's going to be, depending on what happened last time. And so just kind of ironically, looking into history and everything like that just made me kind of apathetic to the whole process. Which sounds like, that guy with the giant brain, like his brain turns into the chair that he's sitting in. It totally sounds like, I think I'm so smart and I'm like ascended or something like that. And that's not what I mean. It's just, it's not, I don't see any point in getting into a Facebook argument with somebody over something like that. It's like my voice specifically isn't going to change anything. And I know that makes everybody mad because they're like, well, if nobody says anything, nothing's going to change. And it's like, yeah, but there's plenty of people who are saying things that are going to make them change, and I don't really know which one I want to vie for, so I'm just going to sit back and watch and enjoy the show for the most part. So yeah, that's just kind of my opinions on all of that, and I know it's such a non-answer, but that's how I've come to see things in the past few years.
No, that's a great answer, and I think it shows that you've entered the first level of awareness of the human condition, which is you are weak, squishy, and powerless, and you're living on a timer.
Yeah, exactly.
So why waste the passions of your life trying to move, a mountain when you could dig a super cool foxhole and play with your friends?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Have a great day,
You
man.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.